may or may not have heard about the Apex Legends thing. We're going to be talking about this pretty much probably for the next couple of weeks. There was uh, an event that happened at the Apex Legends ALGS esports event where two of the top competitors, they were like ranked number 1 and 2 on the Twitch directory. They both were seemingly compromised in that they both started using hacks while streaming live, while during the entire Apex event. They were showing using hacks, and the way they reacted was they didn't have those hacks on there, and they both reacted the same way. Like, I'm being hacked. It's cheating. They kept saying it's cheating. There's cheating. I'm cheating. There's cheating going on. There's cheating going on. So this was Imperial Hal and another guy. And immediately, everybody assumed one of two things: that this was a Apex Legends breach, that somebody hacked Apex Legends, or this was an easy anti-cheat REC, or remote execution code event, which is our biggest fear. And I'm a big proponent of I'm against kernel level anti-cheats in video games because of security risk. So one of my worst fears is that one of the biggest anti-cheats out there, easy anti-cheat, which is what Apex Legends uses. One of my biggest fear was that possibly that got compromised. So those are the two things that people are assuming right now. And I say assuming because we don't have any real proof yet. And one of the things that happened since it's gone on is that several people have chimed in and said what they think it could be, what it can be. Easy Anti-Cheat has tweeted that they believe, and it's their assumption, that it is not Easy Anti-Cheat that is the problem. So that leaves, this could be a hack on Apex Legends, or these guys could have both had their computers compromised. That could be it as well. That's possible too. We can't rule that out, that they both just got owned. Now, the guy that hacked, whose name is credited on this hack, he's not new to the situation. If you may remember, there was a clip from Imperial Hal. I don't have it up, but I could probably put up when I edit this, I can put up a blurb of it. He was in the middle of a match, and this same guy was able to send a whole wave of bots at him to stream snipe him. And they were all named the same thing. They were named this guy. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to give him too much, recognition and fame and all this stuff. But they were all named him. So that guy's name was the same name that happened on this recent hack, with both Imperial Hal and the other guy that got hacked. So there's a lot of there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt going on. People are assuming, they're jumping to conclusions. But what I would recommend is, if you are unaware, or if you're unsure and you don't know what to believe, just uninstall Apex Legends. Just get rid of it. Just get it off your computer, because we don't know what's happening. It's going to take time. If you've ever seen any kind of security hacks or security exploits out there, you know that these things can sometimes take weeks or even months to get to the bottom of it, because there's a lot of information that's got to be combed through. There's a lot of things that's got to be eliminated. There's a lot of just evidence that's got to be collected from different machines and compared to packets and builds, and there's a lot of things that just got to be looked at. So we got to be patient about it. But in the meantime, if you play Apex Legends, I would recommend you go play some Helldivers or some Final Fantasy, or I don't know, Warzone. I don't know what you want to play, but I would recommend not playing Apex right now. That's just me. If it were me, I wouldn't be playing Apex. Some people have gone as far as saying they're not going to play anything that has easy anti-cheat in it until easy anti-cheat is 100% removed from the culprit list, which is understandable. That's a very aggressive stance, but I you know, there's a lot of games out there, so you can get away with playing games that don't have easy anti-cheat on there, if you want to. So it's a mess, and this is a great article I'm showing right here. This is on Reddit. There's a guy talking about he's a cybersecurity as a white hat hacker, and he's trying to quell some of the knee-jerk reactions out there. People are just jumping to conclusions, and they don't know what's actually happening. There's a lot of speculation going on. So he even says in the article, nobody is sure at this point. So we're at the early stages of what happened. If we look at the clips, it looks like both of them had this event happen randomly. Okay. I know there's been a lot of people been caught cheating in the past, and they accidentally hit a hotkey to show their cheats, or I guess they call it streamer mode. And I learned this from this video. There's a streamer mode which hides the cheats from your stream, but you can see them locally. Maybe that got toggled accidentally. You know, that's how a lot of people get caught doing this stuff. But it's seemingly, from what they showed, from what the people showed, it seemingly looked like this thing just spontaneously happened. They were in the middle of like doing call outs, and they were doing a bunch of stuff. And one guy, I think it was Imperial Hal, he was like, there's an aimbot on. Like, he was playing, he was just like, okay, I'm locking on the targets. There's an aimbot on. And they immediately stopped, and they just like got off. That's really not the behavior of someone who is caught cheating. A lot of times they just keep playing, and they don't stop cheating until they look over at their stream and they go, oh, it's on OBS, so they can see what I'm doing. No, these guys were just like, okay, something just happened, and things are popping up. It's not like they just popped up on their screen and they looked over at OBS and they go, oh wait, it's showing on OBS. So that's why I don't think these guys were legit cheaters. That's my speculation, is that their reaction seemed genuine. We still don't know the cause of it, but I think their reaction did seem genuine in how they reacted to it and how it's going on. That, coupled with the guy's name on the cheats, is the same guy that was hacking Imperial Hal. The name of the cheat actually was like Imperial Hal something. So it just really points to some person who is very good at what they do that actually made this happen. So yeah, we don't know for sure, but it could be phishing. Like I said, they could have been compromised. It says if both Hal and Jin, that's the other guy's name, were tricked into downloading malware onto their computer, that malware could obviously contain cheats, which the hacker could then activate during a game. This type of attack is called phishing. I believe this is to be the less likely scenario for reasons I mentioned in the next section, which is but it's absolutely possible. So then this article, and this guy, this is a white hat hacker. He goes on to talk about remote code execution. It says remote code execution is a type of vulnerability in which an attack is able to get code running on a computer remotely over the internet. So you may remember when Valorant came out with their anti-cheat. I think it was called Vanguard, right? It was called Vanguard. And myself included, and a lot of people on the internet were against it because of this possibility. When you have something running at ring 0, which is the lowest level of your operating system, at the kernel level, you are giving that piece of software the keys to the kingdom. You're giving them the keys to your computer. It can do anything it wants to do. And you have to implicitly trust that software that it's not going to do anything bad, right? And it's not going to do anything bad, and it's airtight secure, meaning that nobody can compromise it to do things you don't want to do. Because once they own that, if somebody were to hack Vanguard, they could do some real damage to your computer. Like, they can wipe it at the minimum. They could do anything they want to it with this. So that's a form of remote code execution. If there's an exploit on your computer at the kernel level, or even not at the kernel level, then malicious people can execute anything they want remotely. They call that being owned. Back in my day, you got owned. So yeah. So this article says if an attacker were to find an RCE, they would be able to put cheat software onto Hal and Jin's computers and cause it to execute. They would also They would also allow the attacker to do considerably more malicious things like stealing personal data, passwords, installing ransomware, which encrypts your files and forces you to pay a ransom to get it back. And as a result, this is something of a nightmare scenario. RCE is a very severe vulnerability in any context. Unfortunately, it's also the more likely scenario, in my opinion. For what I can tell, the hacker behind the attack has a history of developing advanced cheats. This is the guy's name I was telling you about earlier, meaning that they're technically proficient and familiar with the security measures of both the Apex client and servers. The hacker themselves has also claimed that this is an RCE source code gen. But to be honest, I think they would claim for this clout regardless of whether they had an RCE or not. So the hacker who did this to Imperial Hal before has claimed that this is a remote code execution. He didn't say how he did it, but he's saying that it's a remote code execution. Have games been RCE before? Yes, including CSGO. A lot of people were talking about a source engine hack possible. And the reason why people think this could be a source engine hack is because it happened before with CSGO. You may remember that people were clicking on links in their Steam messages and they were getting the computer zone through remote code execution. This was something that had all of us scared to even open Steam messages, let alone click on links in them. So yeah, the entire Dark Souls series has had RCEs. Minecraft and a whole bunch of Call of Duty games have had RCEs in the past, which are very, very bad security problems. Am I in danger of playing if I play Apex? Maybe. I personally have uninstalled Apex to be safe right now, and I think you should do the same if you're on PC, and I agree with that. If you play Apex Legends, I think at the minimum you should uninstall. Yeah. As someone, he says, minor edit. As someone to point out in the replies, if you leave Apex installed, just don't open it, you'll probably be fine as well. Because from what I understand, easy anti-cheat on most all of its implementations does not run unless you run a game, which is why I'm personally more of a fan of it than things like Vanguard and what's the other one? The one for Helldivers 2. That one as well. They run at boot. That means that they run all the time. So when I play Helldivers 2, after I'm done, I uninstall it. I uninstall the anti-cheat so it doesn't run all the time. And as a kind of like a show of faith, Vanguard was the same way with Valorant. They gave us an uninstaller so that when people are not playing Valorant, that the anti-cheat is not running. I personally think a game's anti-cheat should not be running all the time if you're not playing a game. But I know that's how they catch a lot of cheats, because a lot of these cheats will run at startup before the game can even detect it, and it will mask itself. So there's a lot of like cat and mouse going on with security and all this kind of good stuff. Some common misconceptions. These are a lot of things that people are tweeting and expressing on the internet. I think the one that we've seen the most is that this is an easy anti-cheat issue. And we don't know that for sure. Easy Anti-Cheat has come out and tweeted for the first time in 5 years, by the way. Easy Anti-Cheat did not tweet for 5 years. And they came back and tweeted, ain't us. We didn't do this. So he says, while this is certainly possible, there's nowhere near enough information to be able to tell if this is the case or not. Anything people say is just speculation. And I agree with that. A lot of us are speculating because that's all we can do at this point, because we don't have all the data. And it's important to not, if you're going to speculate, you should qualify that multiple times. You don't want to be caught out of context saying something and then somebody clips it and puts it on the internet as fact. And you're like, well, I was speculating. And you may have said you were speculating 15 minutes earlier, but somebody can take something out of context and, hey, this guy said this is easy anti-cheat. The same goes that this is an R5 issue. This is an Apex client issue. This is an Apex server issue. This is a source engine issue. Too early to tell where the vulnerability is. The only one of these I have somewhat confident is that it is R5, which I think is fairly unlikely to be the attack vector here. However, this is just my personal opinion. Apex uses remote code execution. RCE is a vulnerability bug, not a feature. If this is RCE in Apex, it is caused by a flaw rather than there by design. There's a bunch of things that people say. I'm not going to go through all of these that he's basically refuting or agreeing to disagree or saying that this is not likely, this is likely, et cetera, et cetera. All the speculation is summarized in this Reddit post, which is why I like it, because he's addressing a lot of issues at once. Other takeaways is that it's been been my belief that video game companies need to take security far more seriously than they currently are. 100% agree with that. Despite making systems as complicated as many normal tech companies, many game companies don't even have a security team. They don't have anybody in charge of security, and do not subject their system to sufficient security auditing. Even back when I was in the workforce, that was the case. It was really bad then. I hope it's gotten better, but when I was working in cubicles or remotely, whatever I was doing, doing security testing and working in that field, tons of companies didn't even consider it until after the fact. It was a reactionary industry where we will hire a security agency and we'll pay them 3 times the amount we would normally pay anybody just so they can get here today and figure this out. And that's why security agencies made hand over fist, still making a lot of money on these reactionary companies, especially companies that hire somebody with security backgrounds to proactively test security, right? That's the first place they like to cut back on budget. The reason for this is often that executives are unwilling to invest money into security until a major incident happens. Wow, it's true. Because there's not an immediate apparent profit from it. Security teams don't make a product that you can sell to people, so many executives view them as a money pit. I don't know if this is the case at Respawn, but I would not be surprised. For some cursory Googling, I wasn't able to find a CISO or a Chief Information Security Officer. Their existing security team seems to be primarily focused on anti-cheating measures. I can't find any bug bounty programs or even a vulnerability disclosure process apart from the broader one handled by EA. My takeaway from this is that please do not harass random Respawn developers about the incident. Every time I've tested a product with bad security, it has been because the team behind it was underfunded, understaffed, etc. And I agree with that 100%. Nobody that I know that had a security exploit, the people I've dealt with, knew about it and released anyway. A lot of times they just didn't have the resources to even find these security exploits because those are critical. Every bug reporting system I've been a part of, every incident, every change control board, and anything you want to talk about where there's a security issue, it gets handled. It doesn't sit. That's not a low priority bug. If it is, and it goes out and it gets exploited, somebody gets fired. Almost every time, somebody's getting fired over that. And it's usually the owner, the stakeholder, the people who said ship it anyway. That person usually gets canned, or they'll blame it on QA, and QA gets banned for it. Which is why Activision Blizzard QA has unionized, because they're used to being blamed for everything. The former QA analyst, I know what that means. I know what that feels like. You report something, it goes out anyway, it gets exploited, or it gets I don't know, not even exploited. It becomes a big stink, and testing gets blamed for it, even though they told you it was going to happen. That's happened way too many times. So I think the related story of Activision QA being unionized is definitely a valid one. So this is bad. This is going to be a developing story. There's going to be a developing story that's going to be going on for quite a while. Because as more information comes out, we're going to be talking about it. But be prepared for silence. Just setting some expectations here. Security firms, every security firm I've known of or worked with or even known about, they do this thing hush hush because they have to. If you're going to analyze all this kind of stuff, they go dark, sometimes for weeks at a time, and they go, okay, here's our findings. Because there's a lot of things they have to protect the client against and themselves against, because it could be the security issue could be ongoing. So if they report their findings of what they found as it's going on, the person hacking them could make adjustments to say, oh, they found this, I'm going to do this instead. So it has to be something that's done in the dark. So don't feel like Apex is going to be hiding something if they don't talk about this. This is very important. This is going to happen in a quiet hush hush until the reports are found. Now, Easy Anti-Cheat kind of, nipped this in the bud and said, it's not us. We don't think it's us, based on what they're saying and what they're saying, which I think was kind of premature. If they're found to be liable, Easy Anti-Cheat is going to look really bad. They really should not have said anything, if you ask me. But they basically said, we don't think it's us. They're confident. I think they use the word, they're confident it's not us, which is a kind of maybe a legally safe thing to say, but they got to be very careful because you don't want to say anything until these reports come out, right? So So Easy Anti-Cheat they kind of covered their bases there to trying to make sure that nobody saw, or I'm sorry, nobody is going to be besmirmishing their name. Because I've already seen lists of games like, these are lists of games that have Easy Anti-Cheat. You should uninstall these at once. People are panicking. I don't think you should panic. I think you should, at the minimum, if you play Apex Legends, don't play it or uninstall it. You know, one thing I'm working towards, I'm hoping to get the funds for it, is I want to be able to just have a consolified PC. What's a consolified PC? That's basically a controlled box, a controlled PC that has no personal information on it at all. All it does is play games. Think of it like a PlayStation or an Xbox. All it does is play games. I don't have any browser history, no browser stuff, no programs, no documents, no images. All it does is play games, right? And a lot of bigger streamers out there, that's why they have these 2 PC streaming setups. They have one PC that they do their streaming on, and they have a PC where it does nothing but play games, and they have their personal computer completely separate, and they don't do any personal stuff on that computer at all, which is a very smart thing to do. Sadly, I haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't have the funds to buy a whole second PC, although I'm working towards it. My chat and my community knows about it. We're working towards getting a 2 PC streaming setup here. And if I do get a 2 PC streaming setup, that's gonna be one of the first things I do. Is I'm gonna isolate it. I'm not gonna put any personal information on it. It's just gonna be games. And it's safer to play games like Valorant with Vanguard. It's safer to play games like Helldivers 2 with their anti-cheat, with Easy Anti-Cheat, anything that's the kernel level. It's safer to do that if you don't have any personal information on there. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not saying if you get hacked that you should feel like good about it, because no, you don't want to get hacked at all, but you want to minimize the collateral damage as much as possible, right? So it's something that, like I said, we're going to be talking about a whole lot, next few days. Sadly, I think the speculation is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until we get some information, and it's going to be dark. You know, Apex is not going to say anything. Imperial Hal and what's the guy's name, Jen, they're probably not going to say anything because they're probably going to get lawyers. So the lawyers are going to say, shut up, as lawyers do. Shut up, don't say anything. And then Easy Anti-Cheat, well, while they have spoken out about it, probably will be involved in the investigation, and they won't be able to divulge the results of the investigation until information comes out. So I ask everybody to just be patient, not to spread a lot of FUD, you know, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If you don't know what FUD means, try not to spread FUD. Clearly articulate when you're speculating to individuals. You don't want to be clipped out of context, or, you know, a Discord message copied and pasted somewhere and taken as fact somewhere. Make sure that if you're going to speculate, that you qualify it and say, hey, we still don't know what's going on, right? Relax, calm down. You know, now's a good time to maybe beef up the security on your system, update your antivirus, make sure you're up to date. Don't click on any links. Don't download any programs you're unsure about. Just exercise good practice and be safe out there, all right? Y'all take care of yourselves. We'll be following up on this one, definitely.